Okay, I want to say something first up. This video is not just another video on spiritual growth, spiritual awakening, higher consciousness, enlightenment, etc. etc. I mean, it is about all of those things, but more than anything else, this video is a challenge. It is a challenge because you will hear things that will, let's say, resonate with your heart, completely resonate with your heart, but not with your mind. Because your mind is full of things that it has already learned, that it is very comfortable with, and therefore it will keep questioning things. And that's a good thing. That challenge is a good thing. So I want you to go through this challenge. This video is also a challenge because I think at various points in this video, you will hear things that will call you out, that will call you out on things that you think you understand completely. They could be from the all-encompassing wisdom you thought you have already received from your favorite books, your favorite religion, your favorite spirituality, or your favorite definition of God, etc., etc. A lot of those things will get called out. And funnily enough, this is not just true for people who are spiritual or who are religious, this is also true for people who are atheists. So, a lot of your core beliefs are going to be called out in this video, and therefore, I wanted to say this already. This video will be a challenge. This will be a challenge because all of those things that will get called out, I know you're very comfortable with. Even if you call yourself an open minded person, almost everyone gets very comfortable with the paradigms, with the perspectives that they're living in right now, and they build a complete life around them. And anything that calls out the bullshit on all of those things, it is hard to hear them. And this video will be one of those videos. But again, this video will be worth it, worth every single minute that you spend on it. This is part 4 of the consciousness series Rocco, Jarman, and I are putting together on this channel. The first 3 parts are, of course, live already. You can consume them if you haven't yet. All of them, including this video, are standalone videos in their own rights with specific, crystal clear messages for anyone who's ready, especially everyone who is ready. So, if you think you're ready, if you think you're up for the challenge, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get into it.
And we're back. So I encountered this quote just as I went for a toilet break. It says, "The conscious person uses the world as a mirror to better understand and master themselves. The unconscious person attacks the mirror because they do not realize it is a mirror." Now, our confusion around our paradigms, what we think we are in relationship with, and our ignorance of how we arrive at our experiences. In other words, the fact if we don't have an examined experience and if we don't have knowledge, you need to have an examined experience. You need to qualify that what you remembered and what you think that you're feeling is actually accurate. And then you have to have knowledge and ways of verifying what you're experiencing and what you're in relationship with, so that you can make that more aligned with reality, right? And the troubling example I give is this story. It's quite graphic and quite uncomfortable, so just brace yourself. It's the story of a cat licking a can of tuna. But the metal is sharp and the cat's cut its tongue. And so it's bleeding and it's licking something and tasting that it's something that it likes to eat. So it keeps licking and it keeps cutting and it keeps tasting. And our relationship with experience and consciousness can be like that. We can be harming ourselves in a moment, but noticing something that we are attracted to, addicted to, that we want, that we require, that we desire. And we can pursue that thing mindlessly with a lack of awareness, with a lack of, with a degree of ignorance. And that is such a powerful image that I got told as a kid that never left me. And I realized that human beings, we do this in so many things. we'll do something that is harming ourselves because we're
Mm.
getting some form of trade-off from it.
That
And
actually
that's
reminds
the
me.
quintessence of samsara. The
Yeah.
quintessence of what the Buddha is teaching about the illusion of self is that. It's that we are in relationship. It's like being angry at someone is swallowing poison, expecting them to be ill.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like holding a burning coal in your hand and
Mm. Mm.
then, you know, wishing that pain on someone else. It's
Mm. That actually, Rocco, that reminds me of a quote from Alan Watts. I heard it from Alan Watts once. He said, "Be careful what you want, you might get it." So,
yeah,
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 the
and be
cat licking
careful
the.
of the. So what he's talking about is inspect your desires,
Mm.
inspect your relationship with reality.
Mm.
And so this now starts talking about our desires or how we invest our will,
Yeah.
and our relationship with the world is how we invest our consciousness.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Consciousness is how we perceive. It's how we discern.
Mm.
It's how we understand. But there is something that we are understanding, and that is not consciousness.
Mm.
Consciousness is the medium that we connect to the thing that we're understanding,
Mm.
or the thing that we're, right? And then we construct things in consciousness, but they are not
The thing.
the thing,
Mm.
right? And
Mm.
not only are they not the thing, they are made of consciousness, but they are not consciousness. They
Yeah.
are made
Yeah.
of consciousness. The
Mm.
the 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 truck that I make out of Lego
Mm.
is not Lego,
Yeah.
right?
I I mean, it is, but it's also not.
Yes, but
It's
it's
got more to it.
Lego is more than that,
Yes. Yes.
right? And Lego is not equal to that. You can't search Lego and find that,
Yeah.
right? But you can create, so you can create something in consciousness and it
Mm.
can appear real to you.
Mm.
But
Mm.
if another person in a cave just elevating their consciousness cannot discover that story that you made up,
Mm.
that means it's
Mm.
not real. It's real only to you. And therefore, this helps us consider what is fundamentally real. That
Objectively.
anybody
Yes.
on any planet, any cave, even not in a human form factor,
Mm.
just another product of life somewhere out there in the cosmos, should be able to encounter the same truth that doesn't have the restrictions to the human narrative and the human
Mm.
framing,
Yeah.
or the cultural framing, or the sexual framing, or the
Mm.
ideological framing, or the spirit,
Mm.
or whatever,
Mm.
the
Mm.
language
Mm.
framing. We're speaking in English now.
Mm.
This
Mm. Mm.
shapes the thought. You think and dream differently when you speak Hindi.
Yeah.
It's just you can't get you things will be lost in translation because there's just a way of expressing
Mm.
things that forms part of your psychological lexicon, which doesn't export translation. It doesn't
Mm.
survive that export. It doesn't survive translation. Something is, you can kind of get there, but you
Mm.
can't completely get there.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
You
Mm.
can't
Mm.
translate poetry very
Mm.
well. Something's lost. You
Yeah.
can do it well,
Mm.
but and sometimes it's interesting, and then there's a resonance. But you
Mm.
have seen poetry that if you try to translate it 1,000 ways, it's just never lands. Never
Yeah.
lands. Right.
Yeah. Mm.
That means,
Rocco. Mm.
yeah.
I wanted to say, I want you to talk about the third way now. But yes, go on.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
Let's talk about that third way.
Mm.
We're actually talking about the third way. I was segueing
Mm.
into that. What I'm
Mm.
trying to
Mm.
allude
Mm.
to is there's
Yes.
something true about the world
Mm.
that is fundamental, that is
Mm.
not therefore transient. It cannot be transient because it cannot be emergent. It cannot be, because the emergent truth of what's true today is not what was true 1,000 years ago. That's why if they were connecting with what they thought was divine and what I'm connecting with what I think of as divine, those two don't have to be exactly the same.
mm,
But they can be of a piece with each other. They can be
mm,
related to each other.
mm, mm,
But that suggests that there is a core fundamental.
mm, mm,
If everything can be raised up one point and looked at and encompassed in perspective, it stands to reason that there must be a supreme polarity of that perspective.
mm,
So let's just look at
mm,
Hermetic principles for a second. We're not saying
mm,
that they are true. We're saying if the following is true, what can we deduce about the world? So let's begin with some assumptions. The one assumption is that the all is mind. Everything fundamentally at its heart is mind, not just consciousness. Consciousness is an aspect of that,
mm,
right? It's the
mm.
light that is
Oh,
emitted by that. Mm.
okay, okay. Mm,
But that's the premise. And the second
mm,
premise is that everything that is, everything that is, everything that exists, everything that you can conceive of is dual, is dualistic
mm,
in one and potentially many ways.
mm,
The
mm,
third thing is that everything that is an expression of vibration, light,
mm,
sound, energy, matter, emotions, and everything is
mm,
made up of those things,
mm, mm, mm,
right?
mm, mm,
Excitations in consciousness,
mm,
they have vibration.
mm, mm, mm.
Music, mood lighting, a tone, a touch, a taste. Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fourth thing is that everything that is, given that it's dual and given that it's in motion, must therefore have polarity. If
Mm,
it's ordered, if it's not chaos, if it's not just static,
mm,
because we can perceive the world is as it is,
mm,
I'm having an experience, right?
mm,
I might
mm,
be
mm,
imagining it all, but let's assume for a second we're not completely imagining everything because you can say things to me that are surprising.
mm,
So unless I'm imagining it and there's this random insanity factor, why would you be saying surprising things to me?
mm,
So I can deduce that we are having a similar experience on some level, and there is something that we can call reality, manifest physical reality. There's too many books and
yes.
movies about it now for us all to be imagining I dreamed all of that up. Could
Yeah.
it be a simulation? Maybe,
Mm,
possibly, but
mm,
not the way you think. None of that's
mm,
getting is helpful to us. So let's just assume there is really a reality, and because of the way it works, shit is not all over the place, right?
mm, mm, mm,
There's
mm,
cause and effect.
mm,
There seems to be some form of gender principle,
mm,
masculine, feminine, positive, negative. There's a thing going on there.
mm,
There's rhythm happening. Things
mm,
happen in cycles and seasons.
mm, mm, mm,
There's polarity to things.
mm,
In other words, things roll down hills. There's a gradient. Here is high pressure. Here is low pressure. Here is
mm,
magnetism works this way. Electricity works this way. Things
mm,
that move between poles.
mm, mm, mm,
Right. So there must be, if you look at the sun, the absolute density at the heart of the sun,
mm,
and then there must be the furthest extensions out into space where the light barely reaches and the gravity is almost ineffectual. So there's a
mm,
polarity. The sun is a
mm,
thing. It has an extreme supreme polarity, which is the density of its gravity and matter and fusion and energy and light. And
mm,
then there's the emanation of that.
mm,
But now it's an emanation like a spherical kind of arrangement
mm,
of which the pole is at the heart of the sun,
mm.
and the other pole is the everything that it isn't, the vacuum that's it's in relation to,
Yes,
the
yes, yeah.
void and the vacuum. So there's
Okay,
still
so
a
that's the fourth
polarity,
one.
right? It
Mm,
might not be like a two battery terminals, that seem equal. These are opposite, but they're very different to the way we think of as poles. But there's still a polarity.
Yeah.
Right. And then everything is in vibration, everything is dual, and this all now belongs to the mind of the all.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not saying there is a God and he has a mind. It's saying there is everything, and the supreme property of anything that has polarity, if the sun had a polarity, then also mind must have a polarity, and consciousness must have a polarity, and everything that we can think of, then if it's real, according to Hermetic law, it says everything is dual, everything is in motion, everything has polarity. If everything has, I'm just assuming that those laws are all correct, so I'll go through them from top to bottom. The all is mind, everything is dual, as above so below. Everything is in motion, which is vibration. Number 4 is polarity. Everything has poles, and everything is degrees of each other. So you can get supreme cold and supreme hot, but everywhere along that line is relatively warmer than something colder behind it, or colder than something lower than a warmer thing above it. Everything is on a spectrum. Yeah? The 5th one is rhythm. Everything ebbs and flows.
Okay.
Like a sine curve,
Yeah.
The seasons, the sun, the tides, a human life, everything ebbs and flows. And then cause and effect, karma, or sorry, and then the gender principle, which is it takes two things of related nature but different expressions, like a different form of polarity. It takes two of these things to make another one. There's a gender principle in things. Things infuse other things. A chemical reaction happens. You can kind of think of it sexually. These two come together to create a third thing, So that's the gender principle. And that things have masculine and feminine expressions to them. And the last one is cause and effect. It means everything top to bottom in this arrangement that we've been speaking about of rules and how things work. Everything has a cause and everything has an effect. And the causes and effects are tied to each other. Which tells you, if you look at the whole thing, that what you're doing is you're prescribing a framework of reason. And that if we now hunt through these rules and explore them, the one that said everything has polarity then says, oh, well, if that's true then, and I'm assuming that this is all true about the world, and I can look around and I can see that the world is a thing. I can notice how thermodynamics work, how gravity works, how electricity works. I can go, there's polarity to everything, right? What else might there be polarity to? Well, apparently, according to these laws, it says everything. So how does that work? So everything that is real, like gravity, like light, like personality, for everything that there is in the world, there is an absolute negative nothing expression, and there is a supreme unity expression. And so the Bhagavad Gita teaches us the supreme personality of Godhead. What that treatise is the consciousness in communion, speaking to, being instructed by the supreme personality. Godhead. Now, Godhead is the collective term we can just use for all the aspects, the supreme of that. So if you can think of anything, mind, I have a mind, reason, consciousness, wisdom, understanding. There is a supreme, infinite expression of that. And what the premise of Hermetics is whatever you are subscribing to or trying to call God is a small, daft idea about this big. And what God actually is, according to this framework of philosophy and science, is to say everything that you can conceive of, the infinite supreme expression of that, we call that God. And we're not saying as if there's a million of them and this one has this will and intention for the world and that one has that. That is a thing, one thing.
Yeah.
Because there's also a unity. Right. So that's the premise of Hermetics. Is that making sense to you?
Perfect sense, Rocco. Yes.
Okay, so then there's this poem that I wrote some years back now, but it's good fun. Kosmos, page 46. This is in Keeper of the Flame. Kosmos, page 46, says, this is a Hermetic meditation on cosmos now, on this unity that I'm speaking about. I am the shelter. I am the beginning of the need. I have no need. I am the word. I am the silence that came before. I am the holy breath upon the waters. I am the infinity that holds the waters and the heaven. I am the witness to the terrible cry. I am the love of the mother. I am the love of the mother. I am what is understanding. I am what is wise. I am one. I am many within the one. I am all. I am all, above and below. I am the mover. I am stillness. I am the very great. I am the very fine. I am the union of choice and surrender. I am life, the orderer of all tides and seasons. I am that I am, the first cause. The first cause. I am the axis. I am the axis and the turning, which means I'm the axis of the wheel of samsara, and I am the turning of the wheel of samsara, and I am the beings that are being thus turned, and I'm the mechanics by which it turns, and I'm the physics by. I am the axis and the turning. I am gravity. I am the space in emptiness. I am the keeper of all limits. Everything that you are in relationship with in your life, in this universe, in eternity, everything. Astrophysics, archaeology, mathematics, all of that stuff that blows our mind is held by this supreme and infinite expression I'm talking about. And an expression is the word. I am the keeper of all limits. I am the twist in the snake. I am the caster of the die. So if we think that things are random and it's just somebody threw dice and it came up this number, the caster is not the person only who throws the dice. It's got two meanings. It means the person who cast the die, who shaped it like this so that when you throw it, this is what it does. I am the caster of the die. I am the destination, the arrival, and the road. I am the many pilgrims and the hard stones along that way. I am the bird of triumph that sets the soul to flight when the trials are done. I am the bird of triumph that sets the soul to flight when the trials are done. I am the mirror and the light. I am the filler of the cup. I am the rod and the staff, the rod of sentencing and the staff of guidance. I am the rod and the staff. I am the eye of judgment in all clemency, and I am the heart of clemency in all judgment. I am the humility of majesty, the humility of true majesty, and the majesty of humility, true humility. Because there's nothing more majestic in this world than authentic and powerful humility. I am the humility of majesty and the majesty of humility. What could be more humble than the most majestic thing in this world, the Most High, the heart and the mind and the promise that sustains everything that you care about in this world, and the infinity of the cosmos? and the eternity of our ability to explore that. I'm the humility of majesty and the majesty of humility. I am the sower and the harvester. I am the beginning and the end. I am here. I am here. I am here. I'm here. I am here. I am waiting. I am waiting. Because if it is everything, it is also that thing that we mean and feel by waiting. The anticipation, the desire. I am here. I am waiting. I am infinite patience. Infinite patience is not in a rush for this to happen by a certain time. There's no judgment day. But there's consequences. Because you can fuck this up. I'll try it again. Don't worry. I've got infinite patience. I can spin up another one in 500
In the
billion
million
years.
years.
The cosmos is infinite. You choose what you do with your moment here. It's not because I wrote a book and I'm going to get angry with you. It's you've got a chance. How do you want to play it? Because I am the destination, the arrival, and the road. I'm the many pilgrims and the hard stones along the way. So I am here. I am waiting. I am infinite patience. I am awareness. I am essence. I am essence. Awareness is universal. Essence is quintessential. It's the expression of uniqueness, ultimate, absolute uniqueness. That's what essence is.
Mm.
I am awareness. I am essence. I am the candle in the darkness and the fire in the hearth. Why do we have a fire in our hearth? Our fireplaces are sacred places where we capture the most violent form of nature and we tame it and we put it in the middle of our homes, and it drives all of our ability to create technology and to bend the materials and the environment to our will. I am the candle in the darkness and the fire in the hearth. I am always home. Every way that is home, I'm that way. I am always home. I am. That is a poetic meditation on my observation of what I've just explained. It's to say, if those 7 laws are true, what might the world feel like, look like? What might the possibility open to me that I could be in relationship with? Not because someone wrote it in a book, but because I can reason my way there and because I can experience the life. And if I can experience the life around me and I can apply my reason,
Mm.
it means I can conceive of the supreme personality of Godhead and the supreme love of Godhead and the supreme consciousness of Godhead and the supreme intelligence of Godhead and the
Mm.
supreme reason of Godhead, which means everything that I actually want to be in relationship with spiritually is a version of that that fills me and guides me in how I want to pursue my genius in this life. So I can receive fulfillment, so that I can absolutely give myself exceptional forms of permission to actualize, not just to the limit of the paradigms that I inherit when I'm born here, but actualize by changing the world in some way, by changing myself, by bringing art and creation and becoming the best husband, becoming the best father, becoming the best teacher, becoming a novel writer. I want to become something, right? Which means God then, if it is anything, is not just a thing that we are aiming for. God is also a becoming. But it's the supreme, infinite nucleus of becoming, the heart of becoming. So this doesn't mean this is a closed system. This means our idea of a spiral that grows on forever. That is
Mm.
what we are in relationship with. not just something that is infinite and supremely of everything we can think of, but growing in that capacity too.
Not created, but creating.
Creating emergence.
Just pause here. Just pause here for 1 second and try to reflect on what Rocco has just described. This definition of God, for people who are regular subscribers of the Unlearning Playground, you might relate it to the earlier definitions that I have provided of the word God on my channel, where we talk about God as the supreme unity of everything. And supreme unity, not merely in the facet of something which is the beginning of everything, for example the Big Bang. When we picture God with that picture in our mind, with that visualization in our mind, we again visualize God as if God is some sort of a creator who started everything, who began everything. And while that is true, it is not the entire picture. Like we just spoke in the video, we live not in a created universe, but rather in a creating universe. We are all more a verb than a noun. We are all more a flux than a static. And so is God. So, any other definition of God that you have, even if you're very attached to it, it is a shallower understanding of God. It is a shallower or it is a subjective truth rather than an objective truth. In fact, I remember in one of my very, very, very early episodes of the podcast, I think this was episode 3 of season 1, I was talking about how any truth about God should be an objective truth, should not be a subjective truth. I mean, if you tend to end conversations around the topic of God with, you have your own truths, I have my own truths, and I'm okay with your truths, what is actually true is that both of you do not have any truths, because God should be an objective reality. God should not be subjective truth. The mere fact that Muslims have their own gods, their own understanding of God, which they consider to be true, and Christians have their own understanding of God, which they consider to be true, and Hindus have their own understanding of God, which they consider to be true, this should tell you that none of them have a proper or an objective understanding of God. And while I will be honest with you and tell you that I arrived at my understanding of the word God via my meditations on Hinduism, via my meditations on philosophers who taught me about Advaita Vedanta, non duality, etc., which is very closely related to Hinduism. And Rocco came up to his definitions via his meditations on Kabbalah, Hermetics, and the gazillion other things that the guy has studied. When we speak about the word God, it is absolutely free of dogma. It is absolutely free of superstitions and bullshit that usually comes around this world. This God, there is no God up there who demands things from you, who you need to be afraid of, who demands sacrifices from you, or who wants you to fast on certain days of the week or certain days of the month, or who wants you to dress a certain way, or who wants you to kill other people who do not agree with your definition of God. All of that is limited, subjective understanding that you need to unlearn. From here on, what Rocco will talk about in the remainder of this video will be how this applies to our lives, our real, practical, everyday lives. And he will also tie it back to the consciousness discussion we had previously, where he alluded to the fact that there is a third path available to everyone for spiritual growth. Well, everyone who's ready. If you need a break right now, take one. Else, let's jump right back into it.
So the reason I'm able to understand consciousness and extrapolate all this stuff is because I took those 7 laws and I said, what will spirituality, what will philosophy, what will science, what will Sam Harris, what will Aurobindo, what will Alan Watts, what will they look and sound like through the lens of assuming that this is true about the world?
Mm.
Now that is consciousness expanding, because that opens a paradigm for you to verify and explore. And now, when you think of that framework and then you go look at Hinduism, you can see which parts make total sense and why. And you can see what maybe has been twisted by superstition. And the same with Buddhism, and the same with our current expression of Hermetics and esoteric and
Voodoo.
Gnosticism,
Yeah.
and all of
Yeah.
the things, even if they are mystical, spiritual, philosophical groundings, they've since been messed up, cluttered, and they were written for minds in an earlier paradigm
Yeah.
without the awareness that there's other lanes next to
Hmm.
you, aiming for other
Hmm.
theirs there.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
You understand?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm not here to prove or qualify whether Hermetics is or isn't true. What I have discovered across an enormous amount of silos of information that I had no right to learn all of them, and that I can speak in such an informed, intelligent, calm, sane, relatable way, is a testament to the veracity and efficacy of mindfulness as a technology, of the seven Hermetic laws as probable, because if you keep finding more stuff to be true and you keep being able to discern and understand better,
Hmm.
what would make you think that you, when you start realizing the experience of transcending the cave into a bigger cave and then realizing it's caves all the way up and laughing at the joke of that and then realizing how big the plan actually is, it's a constant invitation, and it feels like an upgrade, and it feels like real knowledge, real attainment. It feels like attainment because you can not only see that you have grown and that you have more will, understanding, reason, discernment, whatever, but you can see the smallness that you had last time, and you can see how surprising the vector of transcendence was, that you couldn't have got yourself there. You had to have gone through another form of troubling awakening, or another form of surprise, or another form of
Hmm.
intervention by the universe and by your life. Your life happens for you, not to you, to facilitate those
Right.
transcendent
Yeah.
jumps, right? I'm making a claim here, but it's a claim that I'm saying you can go verify. But you can't verify it by dragging me into the granular minutiae of all the paradigms and books and arguments and spiritual treatment we've already done, because that is such a long, circuitous, confusing, troubled route. Take the
Hmm.
short route. Upgrade your consciousness for the right reason using Vipassana. Consider these three paths. Consider the true authenticity inside of you, what you are drawn towards. If your Dharma is the release of self, follow that path. If your Dharma is the I want to stick around for this, but I don't have any enormous ambitions in this life, then choose the nature path, the mother. But if
Hmm.
you don't quite know, but you are drawn to both of those equally, but you don't want to give up yourself because there's something that it means to be you, that you want to knock it out the park in this life, or you want to get somewhere. That's the middle path. That's the path of actualization. That's the path of actualization. You know, if you start understanding and you really reflect on the implications of what I've just said, I'm going to share my screen. It's the development of will and discernment and reason via consciousness, heart alignment, and practices. But this time, what you're including is the effort to understand the design, not the cave that you're in, but that which designs cave after cave, and the fractality of all those caves, and the eternal welcome that you are invited along to, and this legacy of animals that became primates, that became, we got pushed right up to the nature, like was reaching and frozen into the moment, and then off the edge of the mountain that nature reached up into the heavens with, a tree grew.
Hmm.
And on the very tips of those trees, the human race is the little filaments that are branching up towards the stars, towards the light, touching the inspirational lightning that's coming down, which is calling us over the edge of the cliff, over the oblivion, into infinity. Something enables that entire design and that depth of meaning that you attach to all of it, which is neither clinical nor religious nor moralistic, nor then you start seeing this is all the baggage that isn't a spiritual truth. That's a story. And not only is it a story, it's a dogma kind of story. It's frozen and it keeps you small, not just the ignorance of what you know about the world, but the ignorance of who you are in relation to that. You are just a wicked soul. You are a sinner. You are a this. You are a that. You are a this member of this caste. You are a boy. You are a girl. These things are all limiting ideas to the fullness of our potential across all those caves, across all time, and what we're part of. Because we're also part of a body, and that body is a body we share. The body of the atmosphere, the body of the ocean, the body of the planet, of all the biome that comes together to enable the body that we are sustained by, right?
Yeah.
So when you understand the implications of this, the invitation then is to not subject yourself to years and years of deep study, trying to make sense of the mumbo jumbo and trying to upgrade yourself all along the way. That can be done, but those belong to the old paradigm. There's a new paradigm now. The paradigm is, come, let me explain to you how these 7 laws work, how consciousness works, how will works, how actualization works, how emergence works. Because when you start, how mythos works, how the human psyche works, how paradigms work. Because when you understand these things and someone talks about alchemy or magic, you suddenly go, of course, that's what they mean. There's nothing supernatural about this. It's just how you apply your consciousness and your will as you interact with reality. You can do those things unconsciously and create the life that you will inhabit anyway. What means to say that there's not certain ways you can now start understanding the cause and effect relationships and the mechanics of polarity and gender and duality, so that you can apply this to your interactions with yourself in the world. How much quicker are you going to shape this evolution that you're trying to lean into anyway through your various philosophical, yoga, breathwork, meditation, spiritual practices? You're trying to do that anyway. So now the only thing that stands in your way is going, yeah, but I've got a fear of gurus. I've got a suspicion of, and Rocco is sounding like a guru. Yeah, it's not my fault that the only paradigms that we've had have been bad ones that limit us in some way or subvert our will. Remember, the main project here is how to develop your will. That is antithetical to a cult. It's antithetical to surrender of will in any form. It's antithetical to the idea of shame and guilt. It's antithetical. So either you don't understand the project that I've described, or I'm not only an elaborate actor, but I'm also insane, because now that I so clearly understand the project, this is heart aligned. Anything down here isn't the problem with it, is that it's not heart aligned. It's fear aligned. So all I'm going to keep doing is repeating the gist of the project. It's to actualize and to grow up towards this thing that is calling us so dearly in our hearts, our desires. And the only thing that gets in your way is your fear and your limitation and your stuckness about the things that you won't unlearn and you won't let go of, including victim stories. A victim story is something that we learn. The suspicion of other people politically that they are the cause of our pain. It's a scapegoating exercise. So you either want a redeemer, some guru or some saint or some sage or some Buddha or Jesus or the prophet. It's a redeemer. They are going to save us. Trump is going to save us, right? You want that kind of, or you want a scapegoat, someone to blame. And the reason for both of those things is because you don't think you've got what it takes to get there, and you need to know that it's not your fault. That's universal. We all feel inadequate. but we feel inadequate because the truth of our circumstance under that old paradigm of story implies our unworthiness, our shame, our imperfection, our brokenness, and we're so preoccupied with that. I've got a friend who's got ADHD. The condition genuinely affects him, and when I understood more, I realized he explained it in such a way that I know I have ADHD. But I'm just not plagued by it. I'll tell people, I don't like the lighting in here. I can't listen to that music. Can we go talk over here where it's quiet? Can you say that again in a different way because you're losing me? I don't feel like reading the end of this chapter. I'm going to just skip it because I'm not got a story in me that means I'm not a good reader if I don't read the rest of the line. This is boring me, so I'm just skipping ahead. But I gave myself permission to do that.
Yeah.
And so two people have a condition of ADHD. His is actually worse, but I suspect it's worse because it got entrenched over time. And the story in the psyche kept pushing the blame back on the nervous system to say, sort your shit out. And it just became more anxious because that's what happens when you're already doing your best and it's not good enough. You become anxious, right? And if you're anxious, then you can't pay attention. And then you stress out more that you can't pay attention. And then you blame yourself. And it just eventually it becomes embodied, becomes integrated into the nervous system because we change, we're emergent over time, right? And I suspect that if you learn the pathway and the skills and the language and the concepts behind it that I'm providing, that there's nothing that you fear or shame or is inadequate in some way in yourself, that at least 50% of that is psychological topspin that you're applying and making it worse. Like the cat licking the can of tuna with a cut, and it's licking its own blood and it can't stop. And what a outstanding invitation to know that there's a way that we can achieve real enlightenment, real sanity, real consciousness upgrade of will, and education in the language on how to debug and unlearn the stuff that we had, and what clearer picture of the design looks like and how these laws look and work in relation to biology, physics, science, psychology. Because when you understand and you re-look at everything that we know as a species already, and you tidy it up a bit and you figure out what to keep, what to distill, what to throw away, you've now got an excellent lens to understand yourself and the world. The invitation then is to evolution, like self-directed conscious evolution.
Conscious evolution. Yeah.
And the only thing getting in your way is your inability to cross this abyss. Because for you to trust me that I'm saying what the right thing is, you have to decide. And you don't have the balls to decide. Not you, Chetan, but that's the obstacle for people. And that abyss, it's easy when I know the project is I'm going to give myself up, and it's easy when I know I'm just going to surrender that part of myself that wants to make choices for itself, I'm going to go with the flow. But now suddenly when you're trying to become something in this world and your choices fucking matter, that is frightening. That is frightening. And so the first initiation has to be into adulthood. Okay, here's the secret. This is how I became an adult. I don't mean someone of legal drinking age or can drive a car. I mean somebody who knows this very fucking uncomfortable reality of having to own their own choices. Because then the game really begins. Because then you think, shit, when something goes wrong, I'm not looking for who to blame, and I'm not looking for which system gave me my permission to make this choice. I'm an outlaw here. I'm going my own way. The only law I'm following is Hermetics. So I can make mistakes. I can get shit wrong. Your incentive to wake up and become more discerning and become more careful and more reflective arrives in an instant. Now you know why you're practicing Vipassana. Now you know why you're learning all this other esoteric detail is so that you can sharpen up. Otherwise, it's a fool's game, because this path is not for children. It's not for fools. It's not for
Yeah.
punters. It's not for, there's no weekend version of this. There's no Instagram version of this, right? So that's the bit that we're missing, is initiation. And what initiation does is to say, this is how I crossed this bridge. This is how I reasoned my way here. This is the reality I had to accept about the world and myself. These are the responsibilities I learned that I have for myself and for my interactions with other, and for being part of the solution, not part of the problem. Here's how I have created a sane balance between all those things, so that I can figure out how much to serve and how much to take, when to trust my own thinking, how to handle things when I get mistakes, when I make mistakes, how to make amends in the world when you fuck up and it affects somebody else. Why blaming other people is probably pretty stupid, because if everyone's acting the way I'm describing to you now, we are going to make mistakes. We're vulnerable. We're going to have to become more tolerant of each other's, as long as we're all coming from that place, as long as we can say without any cynicism or deceit that we are actually aligned, that we don't need covenants or promises or morals or laws to make us try and act fucking decently. We'll create rule sets among ourselves to behave a certain way, but those things have to be open to adapt and to evolve, because life is emergent, right? We can't write religions and laws the way we used to. We have to change our paradigms, otherwise we're trying to drag around way too much baggage to be effective, to effectively deliver this promise as a society amongst close to 8 billion people. There's going to be difficulty here. We can't get a team of 20 people in an agile team with budgets that are doing that for 8 hours a day. We can't get them to do that. And they're getting delivered bonuses if they get it right, and they'll get fired if they get it wrong. There's real fucking incentives there. We can't get 20 people to do anything together without pain and learning and collaboration and expansion and accidents. And that's why you got to agile everything. That's the reason why these intersections of the snake are iterative. You've got to get your way there. And you've got to follow the cycles and the seasons of your life and of life. You've got to figure out what they mean when they say your dharma. Because if you can't figure out what that is and you think you're aiming up, you're just aiming generically up, which means you're not aiming anywhere. Everything is fucking generically up from the center of the sun, or from the earth, wherever you stand. So that's what initiation has to be. It has to be like laying that truth out, basic truths like, what does love look like right now? Do unto others, not only as that you would have them do unto you, but if the roles were reversed and you had to really think about the implications and the consequences, like that shit matters, and that you can get things wrong, and that if it's somebody comes and tells you, you need to try and improve and make it right, and you've got to take on feedback, and you've got to keep trying to find better ways. But you can't be so driven to better ways that you're making pain somewhere else. You've got to learn to integrate with where you're at. So you can't just actualize the way humanity has for the last 100 years. You now have to integrate this awesome power that you've actualized. And the reason you're suffering with collective mental health and political disruption and antagonism and war and slavery, all the things that you're suffering from, you are, as a single whole self, you are like the cat licking the tuna can. You just haven't integrated all of this awesome power that you have. And so it hurts because you are causing discomfort. You are licking the one part of you is enjoying the blood, whilst the thing that has to carry the nerve cells is getting injured, and you're eating of yourself. Right? As
What
a
a
whole
message, Rocco.
humanity, that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and the reason we're doing that is because we don't realize that everything we're consuming has a byproduct
Mm.
of human suffering and human anguish and human mental health, and that's an ignorance. We haven't woken up from the cave yet. We're still looking at the back wall thinking this is the Twitter and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Joe Biden and laptops and whatever happened in India this week. We think
Mm.
that's the thing. It's not the thing, it's the distraction.
Yeah.
We are deeply, 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 deeply distracted with very silly ways in which we've organized ourselves, and we tell ourselves that this is normal. But all of these things are, this is why it's so hard to wake up from the matrix, because the matrix isn't somewhere else. It's the same place as this.
Yeah.
It just, you can suddenly see how much is not real.
Yeah.
Corporations that are trying to sell widgets to people that don't really want to buy them,
Mm.
that you have to convince them why they need something, or just push it to them, or trick them somehow into buying it, or scam
Mm.
them out of their money. These things are so insane.
That is a
Just,
wonderful message, Rocco. I'll just say something here, man. I mean, initiation, initiation towards what your current state is as an individual and as a society. And then if you actually want to solve it, because there are people who are actually called out to solve, there are people who are called out to be leaders.
yes,
And there are people who are acting on it, but they do not realize that they're acting on it from another shallow viewpoint within
correct,
another cave, which
correct,
they need to come out of to
correct.
actually be a part of the solution.
Yes,
And this is the message there.
that's
This
the
is the
message.
message.
That's the
Yeah,
message that
yeah,
even if you think you're on the right path, lift your head and take the
mm,
following into account, and then
yes,
just realize that there's a much more sophisticated game actually being played, which you
yeah,
can't play because your bandwidth is so overwhelmed with the low level granularity that it takes to exist at in order
yeah,
to play those paradigms.
yeah,
But when you know the hermetic, it's called the logos, in other words, the truth, the design, the reason behind what happens, when
mm,
you know that, and you
mm,
have upgraded your conscious practices so you can start holding space to apply that knowledge real time in life,
mm,
your experience is completely different. And you deal with things at so much more of an essential level that all of the noise and the emotion and the drama which you're currently experiencing falls away. And you realize that it was actually unreal to a degree, but
yeah,
that there is something fundamental in the human experience. It doesn't mean everything is an illusion. It
yes,
means
yes,
there are
exactly.
illusory aspects to what we are experiencing.
Yeah, yeah,
And the universe supports all illusion.
mm,
The
mm,
bee
mm,
sees the sunflower very differently to the way the dog sees the sunflower. The bee's not getting it wrong and the dog right, or the human right and the other two wrong. They have different senses. This one sees it in infrared, this one sees it as black and white, and this one, we have different sensory capacities, different conscious capacities, different wills, different
mm,
dharmas, which
mm,
means we encounter that same fundamental truth of the sunflower from our relative reality.
yeah,
Now, if that's true about a sunflower, it's true about everything. And that doesn't mean that everything we're seeing or experiencing is an illusion. It means there are degrees of illusion inherent in us, whereby
mm,
whatever we are experiencing comes either from reality or via projection. And there's
yeah,
two ways to clarify that projection. It's to focus your lenses and polish your lenses and clean
mm,
your lenses.
mm, mm,
That's this what I teach.
mm.
And then there's the light that travels through that, the consciousness.
The consciousness. Yeah.
Right. And so your meditation is to clear the noise
Mm,
and to widen the aperture.
mm,
And
mm,
your
mm.
learnings is to adjust your lenses and focal lengths and receive that light and integrate
Mm,
that light,
mm, mm.
you
And
know,
always keep integrating. Yes,
and keep
yes. Because
integrating it.
it's
So
yeah.
this is the project I'm describing and I'm offering and I'm teaching. And
Thank you, Rocco.
but there's no disciples here.
Yeah.
This is a transmission, and if you receive it, you can relay it. But you can only relay it to the degree of your integration. And if you're relaying it in an unintegrated way, you're presenting a false story. So this is complete open source, but it's open source with a high level of attainment and discernment. So don't teach what you don't know, and check what you do and don't know, which means I apply the same rules to me, because I might have something wrong that's going to matter one day. But as soon as I know better, then I'll teach better then. But I'm teaching you the best I know now. Now, someone might pick up the community college ukulele book, and we're all learning ukulele, but then you go one chapter ahead of me. Great, then you start teaching, and I'll listen. I don't care who it is. I care that we're learning to play the ukulele or the sitar or the banjo or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes,
Right.
Rocco.
So there's no status here, but there is discernment of attainment. Because you want to learn from the person that's got the most clarity and the most attainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I would want. But there's people that when I teach them how to think about the world, they will teach me things that will blow my mind. That is because I am very attracted to genius. I don't think that anyone's going to outbid me on a higher spiritual truth than the one that I've stumbled on. I think that the spiritual truth is just illuminates a path that we're already following. But the real cash value is what delights us in this world, what lights us up, because what the world needs is more of that light from elation. I love this art. I love this music. I love this book. Let me show you the beauty and the genius in this book. Everyone can be a teacher and a guru through that, because they're all tap into their own genius, and they all become avatars of the divine genius, the infinite personality, intelligence, genius of Godhead. We are all little avatars of that. And how much light we decide to shine into this world is based on our self-permission and our curiosity and our learning to tell our true desires from our lower desires, so that if we lean towards our true desires, we're not checking for permission anymore. That's how we become great in our crafts, and that's how we pursue our calling. Craft and calling. My brother, I have to go.
You
Because
should,
one of
man.
my
It's been
crafts and my callings is as a husband. So I've got to go and sort that out.
Yeah, you sorted it out as a teacher and a friend, and we bid you goodbye, Rocco. Thanks a lot, man. It's been
You're so
awesome.
welcome. I'm so glad you're on this journey with me, and we're helping people learn this. This is great.
Yes, man. Love
Thanks,
this.
brother. Take
Thank you.
care. Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Now, this definitely felt like an upgrade to me. I remember at the end of this conversation, by the time we were done recording, it felt literally like my understanding, my perspective about life had improved manifold. I mean, the distinction of those three paths, what to do with your will, what is the exact so what of these paths, that is definitely a massive upgrade that Rocco is bringing to the table when it comes to the topic of consciousness. This project of upgrading our consciousness that all of us are interested in. In fact, I remember that when I was done with the video, when I was looking back at the video, I had a lot more questions for Rocco about the middle path. And Rocco was kind enough to hop onto another video with me, and we recorded an even more challenging video compared to this one. That video will come out in the coming weeks, so make sure you stay tuned for that too. My advice to anyone who's with me right now is threefold. Firstly, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because there are a lot more upgrades coming your way here on this channel. My second advice would be to subscribe to Rocco's newsletter and my newsletter. Both the links are available down below in the description. They are newsletters where we keep sharing detailed stuff, massive upgrades like this video, and also little short nuggets of wisdom as upgrades to your consciousness that I know you would appreciate. And my third advice, my third help from you would be to share this video with your community, video with your community, because in the absolute ocean that the internet is right now, I feel a genuine upgrade, genuine, meaningful content can only reach its real audience via genuine word of mouth. So make sure you help us do that. Make sure you share this with your community. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to spark any discussion with us, make sure you leave a comment down below in the comment section. And Rocco and I will make sure to respond to it and do the due justice that is due for such comments. I'll see you in the playground soon again. Until next time, peace out.